So David and my Centered Communication group on Facebook wanted a few tips on how to communicate effectively while we're in lockdown, specifically how to do it via phone and messaging. Now, this is, of course, a huge topic and something that I'm sure we could write a book about if we wanted to. But I wanted to take a moment to share 3 simple but effective little tips with you on message communication or text communication. One of the disadvantages of digital communication is that it will often end easily. If we're talking to our friend face to face and silence happens, very few people would just turn and walk away because that would be kind of rude. But when we're communicating via text, well, a conversation can end at any time that one of the people in the conversation just runs out of things to say. Just think about how much more rarely you'll end a text conversation with stuff like, have a nice day, or I'll talk to you later, or any other such parting words, compared to when you're face to face with someone. So, what do we have to do if we want the conversation to not end? Well, we have to give the other person something to reply to. So avoid sending short messages with no questions or hooks. A hook is a statement that inspires curiosity, provokes reactions, or inspires follow-ups. Writing okay or sure or I guess so or any other such short statement is not a hook. I'm guessing that you'll quickly figure out what hooks are if you just start looking for them in your text conversations. So I'll leave this one a little bit up to you, but if you want to, feel free to share some examples or questions in the comments to this video, and I'll give you some more feedback there. Opening multiple loops is just a fancy way of saying talk about multiple topics. A conversation can often become a little boring if it's focused on the same topic for too long. So don't be afraid to change the topic before you feel like you've said all that you can about the topic that you're discussing. When you do, you'll have an easier time avoiding the conversation stopping short answers, and you'll also naturally introduce more hooks and questions. And when you're communicating via text, you have plenty of time to think of new topics to introduce, so it shouldn't be too hard to come up with something new to talk about. And finally, please remember that you often have no idea what the person you're texting with is doing. You'll often not know if something suddenly comes up for them, if they get tired, and so on. Even if you ask them when the conversation starts, you'll usually not know what happens during it. In real life, or on the phone or in video chats, you'll usually notice when something new happens, but you won't always notice via text. And this is important to keep in mind so that we don't force conversations that the other person isn't in a good situation to have. If you notice that the other person is tuning out or not replying or seem to try to end the conversation in some way, let them. Basically, if you feel like you have to work hard to keep the other person engaged, don't work hard. It's likely that they're either busy or in a state that's not ideal for chatting, and you working hard will often come off as pushy, clingy, or desperate. So, when you feel like you have to work hard, take a break instead. That break can be for a few hours or even days, and then you can re-engage either by continuing the conversation where you left it off if you feel like there's more to say, or by bringing up a new topic. And if you find that you always have to work hard to keep someone engaged in conversation, well, that might be a sign that they're not all that interested in keeping the text conversation going. It might be that they're not a good match for you. It might be that they just don't like texting, or it might be a million other reasons. Don't dwell on it. Instead, go through your contact list and find someone else who seems like they might be fun to chat with for a bit, and go for it. And you'll also find that when you're chatting with multiple people, you'll be less affected by those who aren't very interested in connecting.